All right, so welcome to Dragon Tail Books. I'm Ann Vogel, so thank you all for coming, and thank you, Dr. Richard Kyte. So you're director of the D.B. Reinhart Institute for Ethics and Leadership and Endowed Professor of Ethics at Viterbo University.
Yeah, that's a really long
That
title.
is. I was like, I better write it down, otherwise. So thank you so much for coming and for talking about how to build happier communities. I think this is a big topic, and you all heard why we're all here. Yeah,
Well,
so
good.
thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is really nice. I'll start out just by telling you a little bit about how I came to write the book, because that in itself tells part of the story. I've been teaching a course we have a program at Viterbo called Servant Leadership, and I've been teaching in that for over 20 years now. Paula was one of our students in that program, and as part of that program, I developed a course called Building Community, looking at thinking about what is a leader's responsibility for making their communities healthier, and also for building good cultures both in the workplace and in the broader community. While I was doing that and kind of developing it, I came across this work by Ray Oldenburg on third places. Ray Oldenburg is a sociologist who just passed away a few years ago, and he wrote a book called Celebrating the Great Good Place. And he was talking about, in his observation, these third places, the places where we tend to gather. The first place is home, second place is work, third place is where we socialize. And he was noticing that they were declining. And so he was writing about what makes them special, what's characteristic, and why are they important in communities. And I started integrating into my courses an assignment where I would ask students to give a presentation about their third place. In fact, I've got a class tomorrow night, and it's the final class of this final weekend of this class, and everybody's going to giving a presentation on their third place. Now, here's what I discovered in doing that. Half the students would be really excited because they couldn't wait to share the place where they go to socialize. The other half would be really worried about it because they weren't sure they had a third place. And I've noticed over the years, there's more and more people are just worried that maybe I don't have a third place, or I'm not sure if this counts. And some people would talk about their third place being someplace they only visit once a year. It's like a place where they go on summer vacation. Well, I mean, you can form friendships that way, but it doesn't build community in the same way as meeting people on a regular basis. And so anyway, that's all been percolating for a long time. And then during the pandemic, one of the things I've been doing for a long time is writing newspaper columns. And I wrote a column about third places and talking about what was going on in the pandemic, and how we had to make sure that we rebuild them once we were gathering together again, because so many coffee shops and cafes and things were closing and going out of business at that time. If you remember, I got more response to that column than anything else I'd written in the last dozen years or so. And so the publisher for Fulcrum, this publisher, reached out to me and he said, could you develop that into a book, which I had never considered. And I thought, well, I'm not a sociologist. Sociologists write about society and things like that. But it took me about a year to figure out how to write it and what I wanted to focus on. And I finally figured out that what I needed to do was write in a way that I was talking to my adult children now. Like, what would I wish for them? One of whom is in his mid-20s, and the other one has just turned 30. And this whole generation of, many of the young people that I've been teaching over the years are really struggling in our society. Some of them don't feel a need for joining for community, and they'll describe themselves as not being joiners. Other ones are looking for opportunities and finding it really hard. And so I wanted to like to stress the importance of that. And so anyway, that's how the book came about. And then in the years since it was published, I've been traveling all over the country talking to different groups about this. It's been really fascinating. And I'm hearing a variety of stories. I mean, I'm meeting people that are quite lonely. I had an older man come up to me one time after a presentation, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he says, real quietly, "Now I know I have been crying every night." And then I've had other people say, "I don't think I've ever been doing better." And I remember this one. This was a woman who was like, she was about 80 years old. She was involved in all kinds of groups. She was busy every day, and she was talking about like, "I don't think my life's ever been better." Now this is remarkable for somebody like just turned 80 to say their life is going really well, but it's because she's so connected. Like she goes from one third place to another, and like she was rattling them off. You know, you usually ask people, "What's your third place?" She's going, and but I will say this: we have from all over the world now. We have a lot of studies about happiness and what contributes to happiness, and they all point to the same thing: that overwhelming, it's the quality of our relationships. The other thing we find is, as human beings, we continually make the wrong choices. Like we will move away from really good community thinking we're moving towards something that's going to be better because there's opportunities. And I see this in young people all the time. When they're looking for a new job, they're thinking of the job description and the salary, and those are the main things. And then like the recreational opportunities of where they're going to live sometimes. But they aren't thinking about like, is this going to be a place where I can join a community where I can make friends? There are real differences in the United States between different kinds of communities, and we can measure how easy it is to make friends in different communities. It's something sociologists call friending bias. Some communities have a really high friending bias, it's just really hard, and other places have a really low friending bias. And you go in, and there's like, it's people like reach out to you and invite you to join things, and it becomes really easy.
How do you develop that? Or
That's right. That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, like, so some places that have a really low friending bias, you know, might be places that you would think of, like Las Vegas. Like most people are going there because they're not going there to see community, right? And you have a lot of transient population, and so that makes sense. But also, what we find is in some communities that are really well established, everybody has their friend circle and their families, and they've all been there a long time. And it's really hard for strangers to, like, they can meet people, but they can't get into the inner circles, right? And so the best places seem to be somewhere in between, right? And so that's kind of interesting. And they have a lot of, the best places have a lot of clubs and a lot of organizations. And this is really key. One of the things I love seeing when I was just driving around Menominee and I visited a couple parks, like you have parks where you have big signs with all the sponsoring organizations that sponsored the park. That's a sign of a pretty healthy community, because it first of all, it's kind of a symbol of civic pride. First of all, that your community has a lot of organizations that are still continuing. I don't know if they're thriving or not, but they're still going. And the other thing is that it's kind of a reminder to anybody that comes in the community, oh, there's all these different organizations I could belong to, right? And here's an interesting statistic. If you don't belong to anything, joining one club reduces your chance of dying in the next year by 50%.
Wow.
It's it's significant. And so like so I'm learning all this stuff, and it's been fun to go to communities, talk to people, and finding out what's going on, and then just like sit and visit with groups like you, see like Like, what are you noticing? What are you dealing with? And what ideas do you have? And maybe I can have a few ideas too. But where should we start? What would you like to talk about first?
I'd be interested. I don't know if you have any data about like what communities can do to be more friendly. Like,
Yeah.
what besides having the organizations, is there some kind of welcoming or yeah?
Well, even like, how do you know about the organizations?
Right.
Like when you move to a place, how would you know where to find the group that likes the things that you like as well, and
Yeah.
things like
Well,
that?
that's why it's important to have something like when you drive past and you see the signs, parks. But also, like, you think of like, so new people coming into a community, how are they first going to find out? Well, they might visit some sites like the Chamber of Commerce or something, or like the city or county website, knowing like how significant it is for public health. I would say forms of community that are active, that are easy to access, that should be primary on those sites. So anybody that comes in says, oh yeah, so like there's these churches, there's these civic organizations, there's these hobby groups. These are the kind of places that people can join and gather and meet on a regular basis. The other thing I would say is what I find in a lot of northern states like Wisconsin. We've done really well with parks, which is great for about 5 months out of the year. And then you have about 7 months where it might be really hard for people to find gathering places. And we don't do nearly as well. And I've talked to some communities. I can't remember where it was. I think it was Beaver Dam. Said, like, they said, like, I'm not sure if it was Beaver Dam. It was some community, Fond du Lac, I think it was. People were telling me, we have all these parks, but we don't have any community centers. We don't have any places for people that they can just gather, like groups of people that can come together and meet without, renting a cafe or something like that, right? And I think that's really important, because if you're in more of a southern or temperate climate, the outdoor places are great. But in northern climates, we have to pay attention to where do people go in the winter?
It's interesting that you bring up community centers, because I have spent a long time looking, well, granted for me, I'm looking for places to rehearse in the winter.
Yeah.
And they don't allow you to use a community center unless you are a resident of that town. Like Glenwood City, for instance, I live a mile away, but I am not part of the town of Glenwood City. So for me to rent the community center is $200,
Yeah.
even if it's a 2-hour rehearsal. So it's just, I'm kind of at a loss, and it's not just renting the Glen. It's like I'm actually myself a newcomer to this area. So for myself, I found myself going towards Spring Valley, because they have a theater there that is very welcoming. And so I do more in Spring Valley than Glenwood City, because I'm just fascinated by what do you call it, the friending bias?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel that. And I don't know, for me, I don't know if it's running the Glen or just for anybody that's new, but yeah, I feel a difference between the different little towns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's little towns that are just dying, that you just can't find any information anywhere.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and one of the things that happens, I think, in these towns is that, like, they develop a certain culture, and cultures that are really welcoming, and they perpetuate that. And then some kind of have never had that, or they haven't had it for a long time, and they don't know how to get it started. And it takes in both cases though, it takes some individuals that are really committed, right, to developing that. Because even in the towns that have a really good culture, what you find is like you start talking to people and say, well, who are the people keeping this going? Like, and they'll name the same 2 or 3 people that are doing all this work to keep the culture going in that town. And then you think, okay, well, they need support. And are they getting younger people ready that are like ready to take the lead on this stuff?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the number one message from my book is like we've been taking culture and community, like the kind of robust communities that come from developing a good culture. We've been taking it for granted for a long time, and it doesn't happen by accident. And for the first time, like in human society, we don't really need each other to survive. Like we have all this technology, we can survive just fine without interacting with anybody else. But we need each other to thrive. And so we have to intentionally develop community, whereas like our grandparents were forced to. They weren't going to survive without it. Okay. And that's kind of a hard lesson. It's very simple to say it, but it's a hard lesson. Like how do we shift gears to thinking this is something we have to do intentionally? Like I've been trying to get my colleagues at Viterbo. Here we're a university and we talk a lot about community and everything else. Like to say like we're teaching a generation of students that for the first time, a primary part of their responsibility for them to thrive is to seek community and participate in helping to develop it wherever they go. And college is just our focus just on training people for jobs. And they're so focused on jobs that like that's, I mean, that's really important, but like for their happiness, they have to be able to find community. And we haven't focused. I think we need to change our curriculum. And one of the things I talk about in the book, even how we orient rooms, like orient, around a table, like so we're talking to each other. Like I think all classrooms should have tables where students are talking to one another, instead of rows where they're primed to look at a screen, because that's what they're looking for is belonging. So
I think too, the trend to stay at a job 2-3 years and move hinders that, because I see you're building community in your workplace with people, or in the community that they're living in, and then 2-3 years later they're moving. It's really hard to build those relationships when people move so fast.
yeah.
With employment, and that is the trend. We're seeing if we get people to stay 3 years, they want to try something new and exciting. And, yeah.
Well, and there's good and bad things about that. You never want somebody to feel like they're stuck in a job because they have no choice to move. So like the freedom to be able to move to new places is good. But then also, I think just the wisdom to recognize that, like, if I'm looking for a place of employment, one of the things I want to really focus on finding a good culture where I feel like I belong, and then contributing to it. So like I'm also helping to make the culture stronger and welcoming others in that place. And we find that where people do that, there's much higher engagement. There's a fascinating study that came out of Oxford last year of looking at all the research that's been done over the past 20 years or so in workplaces about trying to increase well-being in workplaces and all the programs. Like, so they were trying to figure out where do we have evidence about which programs work and which don't work, because there's there's like mindfulness programs, and then there's like exercise programs, and there's all these different things. And one of the things they noticed is they're almost all focused on individual well-being. And the other thing they found is none of them work. Like workplaces are spending billions of dollars all over the world on trying to improve well-being, and we don't have evidence that any of the programs are working. The only one that seems to work, and they were qualified on it because they said we don't have enough research on this to really know, but the research we have looks really promising. Volunteering, which isn't individual focused, right? Like in most of the workplaces that have volunteering as part of their programs, they do it in teams. So they're building relationships together. So I find this really, we're getting all this information, like what makes us tick is relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I came in late, but did you say that technology had something to do with it? Maybe moving away from, you know, I've seen it with my kids, so it's a
Yeah.
lot different now.
Yeah.
They can't play out. They don't play outside anymore. Like when I was a kid, we all played outside, and there's just no interest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really unfortunate because I talk about it quite a bit in the book. We're noticing a huge shift in the well-being of young people, especially people under 25, since 2012. And that's the first year that the majority of middle school kids have their own smartphones and social media accounts. And you just see a sharp drop off in well-being. You have increases every year since 2012 in depression, anxiety, loneliness,
Suicide.
suicide, especially for boys.
Mm-hmm.
High rate anxiety is worse among girls. Suicide is worse among boys. But it's all due to the same causes. And so we really do know like that the smartphones coupled with social media has made things much worse for them. We're also like last year was the first year that a large number of schools in this country banned cell phones, not just in the classroom, but bell to bell. You know, so like come in the door, you put them in a pouch, right? Or you don't bring them to school at all. And before that, we just had anecdotal evidence of like whether that's a good thing for young people or not. So we're just starting to get the evidence from last year that like what we're finding is there's initial resistance. Kids, of course, don't like it. A lot of parents don't like it because they're worried about contacting kids in an emergency for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Then there's kind of an adjustment period where everybody seems to tolerate it. And then after about a month, what happens is there's kind of a transformation. There's less disciplinary problems. There's fewer demands for counseling services. Test scores are going up, and so as the year goes on, it gets better and better. So I'm a big proponent of that because it's really hard if you're a parent and you have kids, and all your kids' friends have smartphones, and you're the only one that doesn't allow your kid to have it. That's hard. But so how do you do it together? Well, the main place is schools, right? And so then at least at schools, they're talking to each other and they're building relationships. I had one parent tell me, this was just a couple weeks ago, talking to a book club, and she said, the kids had just started school, and she said her daughter said, "Oh, I'm so relieved. Now I don't have to worry if I fall in the hallway, nobody's going to video me."
Oh my goodness.
And the mom was saying, like that's the furthest thing from my
Oh,
mind.
my
That but
goodness.
that was causing her a lot of distress. That if she ever does anything stupid or foolish,
It'll get recorded and go viral and all the comments.
so she was living that with a constant pressure on her. So like there's all these things that we aren't even thinking about that are like negative effects. The other thing that I talk about is friendship that's person to person has a different quality than the friendships that form over social media. And the reason is that they're more stable. And when you're say 12, 13, 14, you're already like in this emotionally really volatile stage. So your emotions are going up and down and up and down, depending on what happens to you in the day. A group of friends that you know person to person, what they do is they kind of even out your emotional trajectory. What social media does is amplifies. So if you're feeling bad, it amplifies it, makes you feel even worse. If you're feeling good, everybody's congratulating you, go way up, and you tend to have these wide swings in kind of emotional responses that might vary from minute to minute, like in ways that like our brains just aren't accustomed to handling that kind of emotional variability. And so there's a lot of things about it that are really stressful for young people, and that like actual person-to-person relationships that are formed over time are really good, and like for all of us, like for adults too.
Well, for kids and adults, all the texting that goes on, you can't read the tone
Mm-hmm.
of the
Right.
person texting you. So sometimes you look at your phone and think,
Sorry.
Perfect timing, right?
it's like, are they kidding? Or
Right.
are they being sarcastic?
Mhm.
Or did they really mean that? You don't know.
Yeah.
And then you can text them back, and maybe they've realized what they said might be hurtful or cause anxiety on the other, and then they change it, and it's like, well, so how do you know what they really felt? It's like
Right.
you can't read your phone. You just, and I think kids have a really hard time figuring it out too.
Yeah.
And then they hold it inside, like maybe they did something wrong when really they didn't do anything wrong at all, but they perceive the other person thinks they did. And
So they're also having a harder time than like entering into social situations where they're not on a phone, because this takes a lot of practice. So just making eye contact with another person like we're doing, there's a lot of young people that find that really uncomfortable. Well, young people always have, and especially if somebody tends to be more introverted, they're like the old joke Garrison Keillor used to say, like a Minnesota extrovert is somebody who looks at other people's shoes when they talk. like there's cultural differences in how comfortable we are making eye contact, that sort of thing. But if you spend a lot of time on the phone and not very much time with interaction with real people, it becomes really hard. And then you think that there's something wrong with you. And then when you're asked to join or you're asked to do something, like you really don't want to, because it's hard. So people are noticing this in workplaces. The other thing we're noticing, I just saw this a couple days ago, personality profiles of Americans are changing. There's really 5 personality measures that have been done for the last 70 years or so, but 3 of them that are really changing significantly is the first is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness has really been declining from 2014 to 2024. That is the sense of personal responsibility people have for getting things done, and the other one is agreeableness. Well, that's, if you're not having to interact with people as much, you don't develop the habit of like, how do you just get along? How do you be polite to people? And like, how do you compliment people? How do you introduce yourself and ask others how they're doing? All this stuff that we kind of take for granted is something that you learn when you're growing up. It's getting harder to learn. And then the other thing is that's increasing is what's the measure is called neuroticism, which is an old name because these measures were developed in the 1950s. but it really means a tendency towards depression and anxiety, and those are going up. And we already knew that those things were going up. But it was news to me that actually it's not just that we have incidents like that are where people are self-reporting different feelings. It's actually like people's personality scores are changing, and you can see it generationally. Like each generation is becoming less conscientious and less agreeable. And that's really unfortunate. So, like, my solution is like this, you can't fix it by telling people, oh, you can't have a course in civility that's going to make people get along, right? It's a matter of daily habit. And where do we develop the daily habits? It's in the places where we socially interact. So schools like ban cell phones, so kids are actually interacting, and then make that a priority.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
And then if you're in a community,
Every time I mention cell
I'm so sorry. I thought I had it off.
I was gonna look.
this is just the life we're living. Yeah.
I was like looking at everybody else because I thought mine was off.
I have an alert to be here.
So anyway, so we just we do what we can community by community. So like if you've got the Renaissance Fair, right? And you've got these volunteers, and you're finding like this is a really great source of community for them. And it absolutely is. My sister and her husband love the Renaissance Fair. I mean, they look forward to it every year, and they're always updating their costumes and all that stuff. It's fantastic because, yeah, they reunite with old friends, and it's a community that they go to.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm finding is there's those that they dress up and they do all of, but there's others that they really want to be a part of it, but they don't want people to look at them. They don't want to be on display. And it just amazes me because I came to this as a performer, but I'm slowly becoming the other type where it's like there are those of us who like to be behind the scenes and do the gardening and do the building and, all of the support system, and very happy doing that, and don't even want to be in a costume when the fair is going on, but they're still a part of it, and it's just amazing. But to what you were saying about schools and young people, I've seen that with my son. He was failing high school, ended up in a day treatment program, and they banned cell phones completely. And he caught up and pretty much finished all his coursework in like 2 years. He didn't have a cell phone, but he knew how to look everything up. Like whatever he needed to learn, he already knew. Like, oh, go here, go here, go here. And he's so fast at everything on the computer. And yeah, so it was wonderful that he did not have that nobody had cell phones, and he learned how to draw because he didn't have anything to fidget to futz with when he was bored. So he learned how to draw in like 2 years.
Yes.
And so, but he seems to, I don't know, he realizes that was a good time in a way, but he's so basically addicted to screens now, he just can't seem to go without them at all.
Yeah, and I mean they're designed to be addictive, right? And you have to realize that, I mean, they're employing neuroscientists who are studying the brain and studying how to make it more addictive, and they're competing with the other companies. The people who work for Meta and Microsoft and Google for OpenAI, and who have children, put really strict limits on their children because they know how addictive it is. I mean that's really unfortunate.
And it's trickling over to, not just kids, but young adults, husbands. I don't have one, but I see it with my own kids. Their significant others or their their husbands, they game all the time. It's like they come home from work, they game. It's like, what happened to going out to eat as a family or going to a family movie night or picnic? Nope, I got a game. All the guys are getting on at this time. It's like, what? Put that down.
Yeah.
When we go over to visit, just 7 o'clock at night, and just I'll pop in and bring dessert or something, and or plan it ahead and bring dessert, and oh, but I can't now because we're playing this game. It's like, put it away.
Yeah.
And talk to people who are actually in the room with you, but they don't. It's just like they're addicted. It's like that's their focus. That's how I unwind. What? It's like, but then you can hear them in the next room just sometimes screaming and ranting and raving, and the chair's flying, and you're just like, but you're relaxing. It's like, wow.
So it's, I mean, like anything used in moderation, it can be like just a good form of entertainment than anything else, like anything else. But it can be addictive, and it's designed to be addictive. And we know that some people can moderate their use really effectively, and others can't. Just like alcohol, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we find, the different studies that look at gaming, that look at social media and so forth, we find really different kinds of results because it really depends on how people use them and how they interact with it. The warning signs are that we're seeing like really increased number of hours, like the average American right now spends 7 hours a day on screens. But it's like for most middle schoolers, it's closer to 13 hours a day. Well, that's way too much. And what we're finding is a real correlation in well-being between the number of hours spent and so it's partly the way it's used, but it's just the amount of time. And so if people can moderate the amount of time they spend, and then also like moderate with other kinds of activities. And I liken it to like eating ultra processed foods versus like healthy foods. Like you're fine, you can eat a few, like some potato chips and things once in a while. That's fine. If your diet is completely highly processed foods, you're not going to be healthy, right? And it's the same sort of thing. It's a matter of moderation and how we use it. So I'm a big proponent of stopping the cell phones in schools because there's no function, there's no reason to have them, and we have all kinds of good evidence that children are better, and it helps them to learn how to moderate that. And then in communities, like we need to really focus on like what are the places for people to gather, and how do we make it easy for the people who want to have gathering places? So somebody that wants to bring a group of people together for rehearsal for something, we have to realize that's not just good for you. It's not a private use. This is good for our community because we have these studies. We're like, what do you need for a healthy community? Well, you measure it in terms of social capital. This is how much civic engagement is there, and then how much trust develops in the community. What we know is that if you have really low friending bias, so it's easy for people to make friends, that forms what's called bonding capital. It means like there's a lot more people that are bonding together. This is friend groups, hobby groups, family groups. That's all bonding capital. That's person to person, really strong ties. That builds what's called bridging capital, where different groups collaborate with one another and make things happen. You get much less political divisiveness. You end up getting better schools. You get lower crime rates. You get better health outcomes. Like all these things that we want to achieve in a society improve when you have social capital.
I was going to say, libraries have been amazing because the rehearsals that we hold they're not run in the Glen specifically, they're the ferries, so the ferries are separate. and they're volunteers. And so libraries have been allowing us to use their conference rooms, and it has been just a lifesaver to do that. And people are learning, performance and all these things. But yeah, so I really think libraries are like a huge part of community building.
Yeah.
I mean,
For
it's
some,
just-
I
yeah.
think if libraries are connected with schools or different things like that, people that have had bad history with those types of things, that isn't community building for them.
If
So,
they're connected with schools,
yeah,
okay.
in that piece. So I've had lots of conversations with people. So I think the niche is finding spaces for everybody, right? So it works for
Right.
you with libraries, and it may work for lots of people,
Right.
and then others that have had bad experience or like, I won't touch that for nothing. So how do we build the community space for
I
them?
hate to hear that when people
I
say,
Yeah.
"Oh, there was a mean librarian." It's like, no.
No, it's not. It's the school experience, like your son, you were talking like, that was really hard. Then he went in. So some people just really have that. So,
Yeah,
like,
so you want a lot of
it's
different places.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to recognize, like within a community, like I might have no interest in the Renaissance Fair and so forth, but what I have to recognize is that when the fairies have a place to practice, that lowers our crime rate. That makes our schools better. When you have a lot of places for different people with different interest groups to get together and form closer ties, that makes everything in a community stronger. So that I have an interest in making sure that you have a place to do those rehearsals. And then I'll have a place
Yeah.
where I can get together with my fishing buddies, for example,
Right,
right? And
right.
and so everybody has an opportunity to do these different things. That makes our community much better.
Yeah, I found out that 4 of our fairies they're young people, and they were so thankful to be able to be a part of it because there's no more dance classes anymore in Spring Valley. The dance teacher retired, and so they're like basically getting free dance lessons. And so I don't know, I'm getting way deep into a specific thing, but yeah, I couldn't believe, like, you guys are putting so much time in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And they kept telling me, no, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, why are you thanking me? But they're like, we can't dance anymore. Our dance teacher retired, and this is now our where we learn dance. So it's just, I don't know. And but then going back to my son, and I keep going backward, but the thing that's the most disturbing to me about the online stuff, and he's never been on Facebook, never been on Facebook at all. But what he does is Discord and not Patreon, but it's there's another one, but and then a lot of gaming. And the most disturbing thing to me is that it's become really normal to give gifts. And you give gifts of money to your friends so that they can give their character a new cloak or a new sword. And it's like, oh, that's really sweet that you're doing that for your friend, but who is this person? And then it gets to be normalized to keep giving money and to these people that you don't know. And I've really worried about this. And he has given a lot of money away, and it has extended beyond things for the games to, I don't know, he knows that I don't approve of it, so he doesn't really tell me much anymore. But when we actually traveled to Washington State this summer and met his friends, which I was relieved that they were who they said they were. They were all young men in their 20s, but it extended outside of the gaming to where even though we had traveled 1,700 miles there, my son was the one buying meals for everyone else.
Yeah. And
It was very
that's not a healthy
strange.
relationship.
No, I'm trying to communicate this to him, and he doesn't understand it. There's all these excuses for why he's the one giving money to these people.
Well, it's these kinds of dysfunctional and manipulative relationships can form anywhere.
Yeah.
Like they can form in real communities too, but what we find is that it's just easier for them to form
Yeah.
online
Yeah.
because there's very little accountability within a real community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry to hear that, but yeah.
So are there ways people can practice or get over the barrier of going to a third place or meeting a group or, because I can see there's,
One of,
difficulty
yeah,
to do it.
yeah.
Like,
yeah.
yeah, one of the things that we know is because it's getting harder for many people to do that, you need to be invited. The power of invitation is really significant. And so, and you probably know people within your circle who just who seem kind of lonely or don't do enough socializing or aren't a member of something, and just trying to invite them to come with you to something can be really important.
I think some of the game stores that do D&D and having their
Yes.
game nights. And,
Those are great.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that too. I know Osseo is a community that I have some friends in, and they have a wonderful boards and bricks, or it's bricks and boards, one of the two. But it's mainly games, board games, puzzles, card games, magic tricks, that kind of stuff. And then they have a room downstairs where they have game nights. But it's board game nights, and people come, and it's open to the community, and it's a way to meet people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really neat when I go there. I have a daughter who loves Legos, so I go there to buy Legos. But I did think that was neat. And then another thing is book clubs too are another, I think, good way to meet people. And even if you go, because when I first moved back to Menominee, I thought I'm just gonna go and I'll read the book, but I'm not gonna say a word because that's the type of person I am. And they happened to hold this book club at, I think is it Nana? Okay. So a brew pub, and I thought, oh, that's kind of unusual, and I kind of like that because I'd been in it before. I have a phobia of walking into places that I've never been in the first time if I'm all by myself. Like if it was you and me, we could walk in. I've been here before, so I felt perfectly comfortable walking in. But some people don't. And, to the point where I would sit in the car outside the building and think, I really don't need to go. No, and I drive away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I'm working on that and getting over that. But, so that was interesting, and I didn't talk at the book club meeting. I just listened, and I got, I nodded my head, and, I understood what they were talking about because I read the book. And then it come time for the end of the thing, and I thanked the person that would put it on, and I said, thank you for holding it in a place like this. I didn't feel like nobody, sometimes when you walk into a place, everybody turns and looks at you. I just, that would, that would scare me away right there.
Yeah.
But, and people weren't. People were welcoming. Oh, this is the book club. Did you read? And you can come, this is the next book we're going to read. You can come next time if you want to. If it doesn't work on your schedule, here's the next book. That was nice. It was like, it was inviting. It was a good thing.
So when I opened the store, or took it over, people said, oh, you should have book club. And so people would come in from book clubs, and I said, well, can I let people know you have them? And oh no. So I mean, some book clubs are like, they are a closed group, and not let you in. So I'll give you our list of book clubs too, if you're interested.
Thank you very much.
Well,
You've been in the door, so
so that's really important. Like you have a list of your book clubs, which I think is great. And I wish every town would have somewhere a list that you could get of like all the enthusiast groups or hobby groups, and like people. So because it's really hard to find what they are, and and every community has a lot of these groups, but they're kind of hidden away, and they're meeting in people's houses or something, and you just don't know what they are. But like just to know what are the range of things, because like who knows that you could, be one of the fairies and practice dancing. Like how would you find that out? Unless you met one of the people that does that, right? And so there's all these things that are kind of unusual. They appeal to a real niche group, but they're good to know about. Joining is the number one thing, I say, because when you join, what you do is you put on your calendar that you're going to go again and again, and that's how you get to meet people and get to know them. If you just go to events that are always different groups of people, like you're in the company of other people, but you're not getting to know them, and so you don't really develop a sense of belonging to the community unless you join something. James, we haven't really brought you into the conversation. Have we answered any of your questions that you came with, or do you have any other questions?
The conversation's gone a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
Staying with the thread that you're currently on, I was thinking about, pre-COVID days, there was a lot more of what's called Meetup. So there was meetup.com where people had these groups that you could join and get connected to. Maybe it was a book club, maybe it was you're going to go to a different coffee shop or whatever. And then came and kind of wrecked all that. You don't see much of it anymore. I feel like you're right, having a place where you can connect and figure out what all the different events are. I don't know if that needs to be something again through, I hate to say through social media, but maybe the library or someplace. I don't know how we find a central clearinghouse for that. The younger generation has moved away from Facebook, become more of our thing, as adults. And so I don't know how we reach people that way. I think the other question, the main question I would have had in the conversation is how do we approach, or I would say convince, but talk to places where we could host events and say, all right, how do we get around the money dynamic here? Like you were saying, when you want to do the Rent Festival, get together with people, they want to charge so much money, that really turns away a lot of people saying, well, we have this thing we want to do, but now you either need to be a member of this club or a member of this church. You need to pay so many dollars per hour and we can't afford it. Do you have any insights as to how to get some more buy-in from others who have the power that we have?
Yeah. So you need enough people in a community that can focus on doing that, and you do it. Like you could do it like through your city and say, okay, as a city, we know that having gathering spots is something we want to support. We want to make them really accessible, and it's important for our civic health. And so we're just going to support this with our tax-funded dollars. So like our community center and so forth, we're going to make sure that at least some of it is free, even though we also have to collect rent for some things, but some of it is free for groups to gather. I met a really interesting group in a suburb of Seattle that had created a place called the Third Place Commons, which was attached to a bookstore, but it was a community gathering spot where anybody could gather. And they had formed a nonprofit, so they would do fundraising to be able to keep that place open. And it was a really interesting idea. Like they recognized this is important for our community. When I was there and visited, I would see high school students coming after school to have a place to study together. And they had student clubs would meet there, and they had just had a bunch of tables. There was a little coffee shop with it. You could walk from that right into this bookstore. Like that, it was really thoughtful in its design. But the nonprofit had formed just to enable a community gathering place. And I thought that's brilliant, right? You have to recognize it's important for our community, so we're gonna sponsor it so like any group can gather.
There's a organization in Minnesota called the, I guess, Department of Public Transformation, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, because I don't live in Minnesota anymore. But they've hosted a lot of online meetings about places in Minnesota that have done that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of places, but they focus on that. I don't think I'm
That's
remembering
really
the
cool.
right name of it.
Well, if you remember it,
Yeah,
like as
I'll
you're
try to
searching,
find
just
it.
let us know. I wanted, like, did we answer, because we're about out of time, did we
Yeah.
answer your questions?
Oh,
or
I-
yours?
I just was fascinated by the subject because I've seen this being an issue for several years.
Mhm.
I really have. I mean, it's kind of, it jumped out at me,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm here. I'm not really from here, actually. So, but I was like, yeah, that's. I'm from the mountains in North Carolina, and the way we get together, or my passion at the time, was music.
Mhm.
And they have the old time, fiddle, banjo music, the old timers they call it, and that's how they had groups all the time getting together for that.
Contra
And
dancing,
sorry,
contra dances or square dancing?
no,
Or
not that. It's just
music?
fiddle music.
Oh,
Just
okay.
they call it old time versus bluegrass. There's a
Okay.
different style, and
Mhm.
so I started going to those, and actually started learning the fiddle. I played a little violin, but that was a way to get to know. We formed a little camaraderie there, and then I quickly dropped out because it was like because the wrong people took over. So you're like, oh well, no more of this. But
Well,
still, it
yeah.
was something.
Yeah, it was something, and
I
that can
mean,
happen, like
yeah.
with any group, like you
Sure,
have
sure.
people, and it is why you need a variety of things in a
Mhm.
community. You need it because you have to encounter a lot of different people to find out, like, who are the people you feel comfortable with and that you want to hang out with. And some people are saying that they find it only online, but I think that's only because we've lost the variety of places in our real communities, and that's so important. And when you mention like the old time music, one of the things that we know is like so much of our gathering together is around activities.
Yeah.
Different
Yeah.
activities. Could I to close? Could I share a story with you? This is a story I use. I think it's near the end of one of the chapters in the book. I talk about a story from one of my favorite books is Ben Logan's The Land Remembers. And it's his recollection of growing up on a farm in Wisconsin during the Great Depression. And he says he remembered the day that his father brought home a new kerosene lantern that was much brighter than the old one. It was an Aladdin lamp, which was the brand Aladdin. They made a lantern that was much brighter than the old rail lantern that they used to have. And so he and his brothers and sister, after they ate dinner, they could all move far across the living room and still do their homework, read their books.
Wow.
They didn't have to gather real close around the old yellow lamplight. And he remembers his mother saying to his dad, "I'm not sure I like this new lamp." And the dad says, "Well, why not? It's a lot brighter." She says, "Yeah, but look what it's done to us." And the dad says, "Well, should I go get the old one?"
Oh.
And she said, "I don't think it's the lamp. I think it's us. Does the new lamp have to change where we sit at night?" And all the kids heard that, and they come and they sat back around the table. And I think it's a great story about where we are with technology. We can't just get rid of all the new technology that allows us much more freedom, allows us to be really independent and scattered. But it doesn't have to change us. We can still choose to gather. And I think we need people in our community just to offer those places and opportunities and remind everybody else about the importance of gathering. And then I think we can kind of rebuild those sense of community that we think we've lost. So, thank you for coming tonight.
Well, thank you.
Nice to visit with you.
And thank you all for coming. And so our next event is tomorrow. William Kent Kruger is coming to Menominee at 6 p.m. at UW Stout Harvey Hall Theater. And then I have an author coming in on Saturday as well.
So I've never met him. I love his books. I've
Mhm.
read a lot of them. Would you tell him something when he's here tomorrow for me?
Yeah.
My brother has a store in downtown Aurora, Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
His stories are set in Aurora, although the town of Aurora, it's up near Ely, it's highly fictionalized in his books.
Yeah.
So my brother tried selling some of Kent Krieger's books because he has a thrift store. He has an online auction company, and that's the pickup place, and then there's a thrift store there too. So he tried selling some of the books, but none of them sold.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they don't there's not a lot of readers coming into a thrift store and up in there in that part of the country, and so they don't even know who Krieger is, even though the stories are set there, and he thought that people would really like it.
Oh.
But my brother, who has a store in Aurora, is a big fan of his, and so just mention that to him.
Okay.
He's not well known in Aurora, but one person knows him.
Well, he should have him come.
I was
There
saying,
you
he
go.
needs to do a presentation.
So the
Yes.
public library, he loves public libraries. So
Yeah.
if he collaborated,
Well, that would be great.
I will let him know. Your brother in Aurora. Okay.
My brother in Aurora.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Would anybody like